When Russian President Vladimir Putin sent his forces into Ukraine on February 24, 2022, most observers expected a quick victory for the invaders. Those early predictions of Russian success have not materialized for what experts cite as a variety of factors, including higher morale and superior military tactics on the Ukrainian side, but also, crucially, the supply of Western armaments. While recent headlines have made much of the potential for Western battle tanks or Patriot air defense systems to influence the war's outcome, these systems have been delivered in small numbers. But there are other weapons that have already helped to change the course of the war. Here are 3 key ones that the Ukrainians have used to devastating effect. Let's get started. Number 3 is the FGM148 Javelin. At the very beginning of the war, fighters on both sides were expecting Russian armored columns to begin rolling into the Ukraine capital of Kyiv within days. The Ukrainians needed something that could blunt that attack, and found it in the form of the Javelin, a shoulder-fired guided anti-tank missile that could be deployed by a single individual. The Javelin is a fire-and-forget weapon. As soon as its operator takes the shot, he's able to run for cover while the missile finds its way to the target. This was particularly important in the early days of the war, as the Russians tended to stay in columns when trying to enter urban areas. A Javelin operator could fire from a building or behind a tree and be gone before the Russians could fire back. The Javelin entered service with the US Army in 1996. Ready-to-use system consists of a command launch unit, or CLU for short, which can also be used to observe the enemy, and a missile with a tandem warhead, which can destroy vehicles equipped with explosive reactive armor, which is widely used on Russian vehicles. The big advantage of this weapon is that it can attack its target both directly and from above, where the armor is relatively thin. This could be particularly distinctive in images early in the war of Russian tanks with their turrets blown off. Often it was a Javelin that had done the damage. The Russians even tried to somehow deal with it by installing makeshift metal cages over the turrets of their tanks, or by reinforcing the top of the tank's turrets with additional reactive armor. A single launcher prepared for the shot weighs just over 22 kilograms, and its range is up to 4 kilometers, which, combined with the flat terrain in eastern Ukraine and the fact that it could be carried and operated by a single soldier, gives it a huge advantage over the Russians, who do not possess a similar type of weapon. So far, more than 10,000 missiles and multiple launch mechanisms have been delivered from Estonia, France, the USA, and Great Britain. Number 2 is the Braktar TB2. The Turkish-designed drone has become one of the world's best-known unmanned aerial vehicles due to its use in the Ukraine war. The TB2 was developed by Selçuk Bayraktar, a graduate of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. An interesting fact is that Bayraktar, who is the chief technology officer of the defense company, Baykar, became a son-in-law to Recep Tayyip Erdogan after he married the Turkish president's daughter in 2016. The Braktar TB2 is capable of conducting surveillance, reconnaissance, as well as combat missions using guided missiles carried on 4 bomb racks under its wings. The TB2 can stay airborne for up to 27 hours, and the operation range is up to 150 kilometers from its ground control station. It's relatively cheap, made with off-the-shelf parts, packs a lethal punch, and records its kills on video. Those videos have shown it taking out Russian armor, artillery, supply lines, and even systems that were theoretically supposed to protect against it, such as Strela 10, Buk, Tor, or Pantsir. Viral videos of the TB2 are a perfect example of modern warfare in the TikTok era. Also, they were a great morale booster, much needed early in the war. In the first months of the war, the Ukrainians were able to use their TB2s to exploit the weaknesses of the Russians in the form of the lack of a sufficient number of air defense systems in the combat zone, often destroying entire columns of their equipment, thus avoiding defeat. However, since then, the front line's been shortened, and the Russians have begun to put more emphasis on providing their units with adequate air defense. That's why the Ukrainian TB2s are currently used only for reconnaissance operations, conducted out of the range of Russian air defense. Interestingly, Taras Borovak, a Ukrainian colonel, producer, singer, and songwriter, wrote a folk song dedicated to the TB2, showing how iconic the TB2 has become to the Ukrainians. Number 1 is the M142 HIMARS. If Javelin and Braktar were the iconic weapons of the early phases of the war, HIMARS is the iconic weapon of the later phases. It has two key effects. The HIMARS strikes have forced the Russians to move their ammunition depots farther to the rear, thereby reducing the available firepower of Russian artillery near the front lines and making logistical support more difficult. Also, using long-range rockets to hit targets such as bridges has disrupted Russian army maneuvering. The M142 high-mobility artillery rocket system is a multiple rocket launcher mounted on a chassis of an armored truck, introduced into service in the early 2000s, and first adopted by the US Army and the United States Marine Corps. The delivery of HIMARS to Ukraine means that together with a Ukrainian-developed Wilcha, for which they already lack ammunition, gives them the ability to precisely strike targets at long distances, unattainable by systems such as the 9K-79 Tochka-U. The US has provided the Ukrainians with two types of 227mm rockets. The M30A1 alternative warhead with a range of 84 kilometers. It has a 91-kilogram high-explosive warhead with a proximity fuse and approximately 182,000 preformed tungsten fragments for area effects without unexploded ordnance. The second type of rocket is the M31A1 GMLRS Unitary, with a 91-kilogram high-explosive warhead and a programmable fuse. It has a range of up to 84 kilometers as well. It can hit targets accurately with less chance of collateral damage while needing fewer rockets to be fired, reducing logistical requirements. In addition, the M142 can also fire FGM148 Army tactical missile system, with a range of up to 300 kilometers, but they will not be handed over to Ukraine for fear of the possibility of shelling targets deep inside Russian territory. Instead, the US will deliver later this year ground-launched small-diameter bombs with a range of 150 kilometers. Before the war, the US had over 410 M142 HIMARS rocket launchers. So far, they've decided to donate 20 of them to Ukraine and finance the purchase of 18 more. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share. Also, visit my second channel with military power comparisons. See you next time!